everybody. So, funny story. Originally, we were going to play Vampire the Masquerade, and then one of our players was like, I'm going to do research and get into character, and I'm going to bump and grind my way across the tri-state area. And we literally haven't seen him in 2 weeks. So, all my prep got thrown out. I guess we're going to play MonsterHearts because I'm really on this monster vibe, so fuck it.
I don't like the implication of everything you said there.
Way better cold open than last week.
It was certainly an open. We've lost someone to drugs and hookers.
Yeah, like wait, some say he's still out there. Pacifier in mouth. At the rave.
Nice.
Dude, it's crazy. Before I moved to Texas, I was on a dating app, and I saw one of my old classmates. And her location was Manhattan, where I did not live. And she just went full rave kid, like full on. And then I found out she was like disappearing for like months at a time to like fly to California and do raves. And she just like shows back up sometimes. Yeah.
I always wonder when people do that shit. I'm like, how do you fund these adventures?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot of hitchhiking and like odd jobs.
I guess.
I do. All right. So I've picked, as our listeners may know, I'm an Uber driver at the moment. As one of my jobs, one of my 3 jobs.
I suppose doing like Uber and DoorDash does make that sort of thing easier these days, huh?
Yeah. Well, so I picked up these ladies and they were like, oh yeah, I worked 2 whole weeks to fly out to Houston to go to this con. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to work another like week and a half. And then I'm going to get a plane ticket to fucking Morocco. And then we're going to spend a week in Morocco. I'm like, what? Ma'am, where is your fucking stability?
Nah, we don't need that.
Apparently fucking not. We're off topic before we even said what the topic was. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Sessions Cancel podcast. It's me, Isaiah. I'm here with Josh.
I am here.
And there was no lie, really. I was the bump and grind kid, by the way. And I've really been on like an urban fantasy kick the last amount of time.
I do love it. Maybe the next thing we should look at is Urban Shadows.
That or Legally Distinct Jujutsu Kaisen, our new RPG Kane, which fucks. Vibes,
Urban Shadows is another PBTA game if we wanted to, stay on the theme.
Mm-hmm. I do want to read Kids on Bikes.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Yeah, I know of it. I haven't read it.
Yeah, ever since you brought it up, I was like, is it like MonsterHearts where there's no point other than like character progression, like personal character progression, or is there like some sort of meta plot?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know how the game tells you to structure that.
Yeah, I'm super curious about that. I'm going to take a look at that after I read Kane, because I just fucking bought the thing and I should probably read it before I buy another game. Anyway, what are we talking about this week? Well, we made a post about it today, Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. We're talking about MonsterHearts, and we're talking about it because I am currently on a little hiatus because Brett, the abandoner, abandoned me, and he will be gone doing his job like a human being for a couple weeks. So my Lancer game is currently on hiatus because we're like halfway through the campaign. There's a lot of plot stuff going on, and I don't want to have someone miss out on all that juicy funness. So we're playing MonsterHearts. And you, very justifiably, might be like, Isaiah, what the fuck is MonsterHearts? What? Wow, I'm happy you asked. Elevator pitch. It's like Twilight. I'm kidding. No, actually, I'm not.
You're not that far off when you make that statement.
MonsterHearts is powered by the Apocalypse system that harkens back to sweet, melodramatic, young adult fiction and 80s exploitation style like horror cinema. So great combination of genres right there, right off the bat. And essentially you take the role of like angsty hormonally charged teenagers trying to survive the horrors of high school and puberty and like demons and shit, all while being secretly monsters yourselves, you know, like werewolves and vampires, heathers, literally, all that fun jazz. And I don't know about you. I did not. I know literally nothing about Twilight other than the one video essay Josh sent me like 3 years ago, which was fascinating. But I do really like urban fantasy, and I do really like vampires and werewolves. I was a Helsing Ultimate kid, and a Lost Boys kid,
Forgot I
and a Van Helsing kid, and a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen kid. I like werewolves and vampires. Okay, leave me alone. And Heathers, the musical. It's a good musical. Like the only one I like.
I don't know Heathers.
It's great.
Also, you like Rocky Horror Picture Show?
I do love Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That counts.
I showed you Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it's one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Wild time.
To this day, when I showed it to Moogie, when we all watched it together, like right after Guns Akimbo, we showed it to Moogie and her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And I was like, so what'd y'all think? And Josh was like, peak. And then Moogie was like, peak. And then her boyfriend was like,
what the fuck did I
didn't
watch?
get it. I didn't like it. I thought it was kind of mid. I was like,
yeah.
I can't believe you've done this.
Joke's on you. I'm into that weird shit. Listen, my girlfriend recently made me watch The Greatest Showman.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Another good musical.
I had a crush on the albino lady watching that movie.
Albino lady?
Yeah, so there was two albino people in the troupe. I can't remember. There was three, I think. There was two women and one dude, and the like main albino woman who did the dancing, like interpretive dance, I had like a weird crush on her.
Oh.
Interesting. Like my mom was like, "Oh, Zendaya is so pretty in this movie," and I'm like, "Huh? Yeah, what? No, yeah."
Fair enough.
I had way more respect for that movie once I saw the test footage with Hugh Jackman tearing open the sutures in his nose.
Oh God, ow!
Did you hear about that?
I think you told me about it.
Yeah. All right. So to the audience, so Hugh Jackman had cancer, is in remission, as far as I know. Hopefully, fucking fingers crossed. But he had it in his nose, and he had, I believe, he had the tumor excised like weeks before he was supposed to pitch The Greatest Showman to the producers. So they were doing like a read through, and they were going to do a song, and he specifically was told like, "Hey, I'm not going to sing. I can't. If I rip these sutures, I'm boned." And you can see in the video, he makes this decision as the music builds to like, fuck it, we're going to try it. And he starts belting it out to the fucking back row. And every so often he starts like pinching his nose. And you can see he definitely ripped the sutures open. And he was like, I guess him really kicking it to 11 is what sold the producers on that movie. And, you know, something bleed for your craft.
Yeah.
All of that notwithstanding, you might be like, okay, cool.
Oh my God. I just had the thought of like one of the plots of your seasons in MonsterHearts is you're putting on the school play and everyone's part of the like either actors or part of the stage crew. Oh my God.
You'd have to get hammered for that. You'd just have to sit everyone down and get hammered before session and just really go for it.
I mean, I don't know if that's a requirement, but you certainly could.
I mean, that would be the most fun, I think.
Perhaps.
Well, so, you know, that's not too far off because I have Sareth, who's like jumping in on MonsterHearts because, you know, the second I told her about it and I showed her the Critical Role, like Cinderbrush one, she was like, I need to play this game. So I've let her in on my... It's
gay and dramatic. I'm in.
Yeah, she was sold immediately. So I let her in, and she wants to run one now using the town that we built, which is based off my hometown. And she wants to do like a Halloween pageant as one of the seasons. And I'm like, I mean, that's pretty close to the school theater for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be great. I'm so excited.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, we've talked about a couple things already. Off to a great start. You might be like, all right, yeah, but like, what's the point? Like, yeah, sure, hormones and monsters. What do you do?
Hormones and monsters.
MonsterHearts is a game. and a system is designed to replicate the very messy, very complicated, often deeply uncomfortable social dynamics of young adult life through the lens of like late high school to early college-ish. And what is the point of the game? Solid argument that there isn't one, other than to explore characters and their growth through...
It's for the drama.
It's for the drama, yeah. Each of the playbooks, or skins, as they are called in this game, are designed to replicate archetypes of the high school experience, specifically through like a neurodivergent, often very queer-coded lens. This game is very gay. And
mucho gay.
You, as the master of ceremonies, present to them like meta plots that help push their dynamics. So, you know, if one of the characters is playing the queen, the Heather character, you could have one season or arc based around the new like queen bee coming to the school and usurping her spot. And she might be like a vampire or something. And who, you know, and as the season goes on, she's gathering like vampire thralls that the players have to fight and like maybe kill if they're down for that. Like that's how the game sort of presents its general flow. And really, if that doesn't get you involved based on that elevator pitch alone, there is no pleasing you, but don't worry, we've got more.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it is worth saying, as far as RPGs go, this game does a very specific thing, but it does its very specific thing really well. So if you're into the premise, you're going to like it a lot. However, if you are not even remotely into the premise, there's zero chance you're going to be into this.
Yeah, you will very likely bounce off hard.
Like it kind of in a similar sense of if you don't think running around, I should say, dusty, nasty dungeons and fighting goblins and lizard monsters and shit, if that doesn't sound fun to you, you're not going to probably like D&D, you know? Like, a similar kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be ready for the drama.
I will say, and I'm really just parroting what Josh said last time in the unaired episode. I will have to admit that as much as I like this game, and I arguably like this game more than Apocalypse and Dungeon World, it's not very good if you don't know this system already. If you're not familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse,
no, it does not go out of your way to teach you how it works
anything,
very much.
Like anything. So if you don't know Powered by the Apocalypse and you're not comfortable with that system, you can bounce off this harder than a fucking squash ball.
I brought that up.
I was completely like, I need a sport
squash. He said squash. Anyway, it comes from an era. So like MonsterHearts is a pretty old PBTA game, right? And so it comes from a time period where I'm sure if someone did the like historical research, you could break it down into generations, right? But if you look at modern PBTA games, for example, Avatar Legends that just came out, it has stepped quite far from Apocalypse World. It has pushed itself away from Apocalypse World quite a lot. I mean, the bones are still there, but a lot of PBTA games now have moved themselves away and stand on their own more and don't call back to Apocalypse World as much as like they don't call back to Apocalypse World as quote unquote necessary reading. And then even beyond that, Blades in the Dark stepped so far it created its own subculture to the subculture, right? So there's all this shit going on in terms of how it's evolved. MonsterHearts is from an earlier especially first editions, from an earlier stage where basically all of the PBTA games that were coming out kind of assumed you knew what Apocalypse World was and had read it or interacted with it in some capacity. And so they didn't, I think there wasn't as much of an assumption that you needed to do as much teaching. Whereas now we've gotten to the point that PBTA has gone on long enough and it's far enough away from when Apocalypse World first got published, like 10 years ago, I want to say.
Try 15.
Apocalypse World? 2010?
Yeah, publication 2010.
Oh, okay. Well, either way.
MonsterHearts, by the way, first edition published 2012. So you could argue this is first wave powered by the apocalypse.
No, that's what I'm saying. It is first wave Power of the Apocalypse. Yeah. Like this Monster Hearts is one of the earliest ones, and it's one of the earliest ones that really took off. But because it was in that early wave, it kind of assumes you know what Apocalypse World is. All of this yapping is for me just to say this game doesn't do a great job getting the point across of PBTA on its own, because this game, I think, to a certain degree, had a built-in assumption that you knew what PBTA was already. Newer PBTA games do not make that assumption anymore. Right? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like when you play the sequel to a game and it doesn't tell you the controls because they're the same as the first game, so it just assumes you already played the first game.
That reminds me of a fucking... Josh Drive Hayes' video essay on Soul Reaver 1 to Soul Reaver 2.
Yeah, exactly that. So yes, as like a teaching tool and a standalone game, Monster Hearts almost sort of doesn't work entirely.
Yeah.
But it wasn't meant to.
To the point that...
I would love to see a Monster Hearts 3rd edition.
Oh, I would too.
Modern PBTA climate and what that would look like.
That would be amazing. And like, to really hammer this home, Monster Hearts does not, at any point, even tell you what dice you need to roll.
It
doesn't tell you if it D6s, D10s, D20s, D100s.
I have a feeling that particular thing was an oversight and they just sort of forgot. I feel like that couldn't have been on purpose.
Well, considering that it's still that way in 2nd edition, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
That's a little wild, right? 2nd edition, it's still not in there.
It's a weird choice. If it was a deliberate choice, weird choice.
Yeah. Now, this might sound like we're poo-pooing on it. No. I love this game, but that is admittedly very annoying.
We're putting it in context, is it right? Because it's the same idea as if you go back and play, you know, if you go back, I'm going to say Doom because I've been playing Doom Eternal, so Doom's on the mind. If you go back and play the first Doom and you're running around, you're like, this is fucking stupid. I can't aim up, right? Why can't I point up? And there's no aim down sights, and why is the gun in the middle of the screen? Well, because in the context of when Doom came out, that, you know, aiming up was not a technology you could have because of how they faked the 3D in Doom, which is to say Doom's not actually 3D, but that's a whole other rabbit hole.
I watched a whole video on how they faked the 3D.
How they fake it,
fascinating.
Yeah. It's great, cool technology.
Yeah.
And like the aim down sights wasn't a concept, and the gun in the middle of the screen was just kind of because they thought that made sense at the time. You know, you have to put the game in the context and understand, put the game in the context of when it was made and understand why some of the bits of it are the way they are. We're just putting Monster Hearts in that context to explain why you may notice some things if you go to read it and be like, why does it not tell me what dice to roll? That's why.
I remember, so Paladin was like, hey, what do I roll? And I went, you roll 2d6. And he goes, where does it say that? I'm like, well, it should be in the beginning of the game. He goes, I don't see it. And I go, what? Absolutely not. Of course they put. Oh, yeah, good times.
And then you hit the sponge guard like, oh,
yeah, literally, yes. I think to this day, SpongeGar is still my favorite meme of all time.
It's a pretty good one.
If it's not that, it's Surprise Pikachu. Like,
I do also like Surprise. Fair, yeah.
But I remember while we were in school, I was like in fucking SpongeGar. Shit, that was early. That was like phase 2 memes. That was like 2014, 2015.
I would not call that phase 2 memes, but we don't need to get into that right now.
Fair enough. Even in the year of our Lord 2018, I saw a SpongeGar meme and still laughed my ass off. Never gets old.
It's kind of funny every time.
Yeah. Now, dear listeners, you might be asking, okay, well, the game says that it doesn't explain how to play it. How do you play it? Don't worry, we figured it out. I'm kidding. No, the game does explain how to play. The minutia of the like.
It doesn't get into the minutia. Yeah. It explains how to play, but maybe not as much as you would like. So you read Apocalypse World first.
Yes, you read your 500-page book to read your 200-page book.
Apocalypse World's not 500 pages.
Like 300 or something.
Yeah, it's like 340, I think.
Hold on, I have it open right now. It's 309. Okay. Now, you might be asking, how do you play that? Great question. The game, as we've stated, it references, 80s style media like Stranger Things, but also more contemporary melodrama like Teen Wolf or Twilight. And it acts as a fun like merger of interpersonal melodrama mixed with some really sick urban fantasy, like gothic punk style a la World of Darkness. The game itself is driven by the narrative and by conversation. A lot of storytelling and very, very little, if any, combat. The game doesn't really have a combat system of any kind. There is a method by which to do damage, but there is no talk about the back and forth, because the game just doesn't really care about that. And as PBTA do, if it's not something the game mechanics are overly concerned with, they just sort of leave it up to let it flow like a conversation and do what honesty demands. To that point, I really like the way that they talk about the rules for lash out physically, which is the main combat move in the game. And it says outright, if it gets to a point where a character has to lash out physically, especially at another character, do not have your players just exchange lash out physically rolls. That's not the point, and it's going to be really boring.
Yeah, it's not D&D. You're not making attack rolls back and forth.
Yeah. If a character lashes out physically, that means that the proverbial scratch on the record has been hit, and characters go into a different mindset. Not that you should stop playing the game, because the game it says, PvP is probably going to happen, just like Apocalypse World. But it's not the point. So don't treat it like a point. It's not a combat game like D&D.
Can I just also say it's kind of funny? I just looked at the taking inspiration, the last chapter real quick, just because I was curious what it lists when you were mentioning the vibes. Mm-hmm. And, a couple shows, couple songs, like a movie, blah, blah, blah. It mentions Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Vampire Diaries. And then the very last thing on the inspiration list, read Apocalypse World.
Read Apocalypse World, yep.
Yeah, you're like, all right, well, yeah, okay.
That's pretty great.
Fair enough.
I watch The Craft and Lost Boys. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Love that. I have no idea what Ginger Snaps is, though.
I don't know. I haven't watched The Craft or Lost Boys either. I know of them.
You've never seen The Lost Boys?
No.
Okay, I know what we're doing. We'll figure out a day. Don't worry. We'll watch The Lost Boys.
Okay.
It's so peak. It's so peak. And the main character and, oh God, what the hell is his name?
It's a movie? I thought it was a show.
I believe they're remaking it into a show. But,
wonder if I'm confusing it with something.
Jason Patrick and Kiefer Sutherland's character have such gay energy. God.
Okay.
Kiefer Sutherland is the leader of the vampire gang of hooligans, and Michael is your dreamy, windswept hair, just moved to not Miami,
wherever it is.
Malibu, dreamboat, and they have some energy, brother.
I see.
Specifically at the in the amusement park at the end.
Santa Carla, California.
Yeah. I was right about California.
Yeah.
Good. Oh yeah. Lost Boys reboot will star Noah Jupe and Jaden Martell. Okay, cool.
Huh. Okay.
I'm definitely gonna watch that. That was that was a quintessential movie for me growing up. I don't know why. My mom just really liked The Lost Boys. Anyway. I feel like it is important to bring this up. We joked about it in the beginning, but it is I don't know, it's serious, but it is a very prevalent thing when it comes to discussing MonsterHearts.
This game being gay as shit.
The game being gay as shit, yes. This is a game of diversity. It is designed, it is built by minority groups, to tell stories about minority groups, to bring love to minority groups, to tell stories about the quote-unquote rejects of society. And the idea of those stories is inextricably linked to MonsterHearts. The game expects these things to happen, and they are in some ways folded into the playbooks themselves. And you kind of have to recognize it. Like, I don't really think it works if you don't do it. And like, to the point of, do you need to be a non-binary person of color? Like, no, not at all. You can be your normal, like, cisgender white kid in high school. But the point of the game is you're supposed to play a character of whatever flavor you want that is overlooked by society and punched down on by the collective. And I think, as someone who is, someone who is of the LGBT community, who is Latino, I really enjoy the fact that the game references this and treats it with a level of sincerity and seriousness that I appreciate, frankly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I don't have anything to add other than the fact that, yeah, it was written by a very not straight lady who wanted to let you know about the very not straight. So,
yes. We need to bring it up. It's not something I think we need to devote a whole bunch of time on, but it did, affect me meaningfully while I read it. It's a little unfortunate because the way that the chapter is worded, and it does have a full chapter, like straight up, it does seem a little finger waggling at you, like, you better do it. And that can and likely will rub some people the wrong way. And I don't necessarily think they're wrong about getting getting a stern talking to by the game. I think it's a justified response to be like, game, I get it. I am an ally, or I am part of this community. It is there, worth reading, but yeah, you just gotta let the game do what it do. And if you really don't like it, play a different game. I'm not gonna hold it to you. This game has already got a bunch of stuff that is gonna bounce someone off of it. So, ED, what ED?
If you're homophobic, avoid.
Avoid, yes. Avoid like the plague. It will kill you. Like the plague. All right. Let's get to the basic shiz. So much like Apocalypse World, this game runs off of a system of moves, essentially narrative triggers that proc once specific actions or sets of actions are described in the narrative. Moves are supported by a set of stats, new stats in comparison to Apocalypse World. They are as follows: hot, cold, volatile, and dark. They are pretty self-explanatory, I think. The stats are essentially describing your ability to be passionate, your ability to be cold and cruel, your ability to be passionate and angry, and your ability to tap into your inner darkness, be it your depression or literally staring into hell. The game utilizes a new set of moves in comparison to Apocalypse World and distinctly lacks one, as we thought, but apparently it's in the werewolf. We'll get to it. The moves are turn someone on, shut someone down, keep your cool, lash out physically, run away, or gaze into the abyss. And for a quick rundown of those, turn someone on is your ability to be persuasive, charismatic, sexy, provocative. Like, it's your charisma. It really is. It's your force of will, your just sort of force of nature personality that you can impose upon others to get the things you want. Shut someone down is sort of the opposite, be it you shoving someone against the wall, giving them a stern talking to, telling them they're a bitch. It's your ability to enforce your will to stop other people from doing the prior action. And that can, in fact, take the form of shutting someone down on someone who's trying to turn you on, like actually roll to turn you on. But it also is just a good stand-in for your character to act cold, right? Your ability to sort of give people the shoulder and be a little standoffish. Keep your cool allows you to act under duress, not really in like a wisdom save kind of way, but more like things are going down. This is a roll that is, you're in a situation where your character will likely be unable to roll due to their duress. So roll, keep your cool to really afford you the ability to keep moving through the scene itself, narratively speaking.
Yeah, I will say I find it kind of interesting how this game words keep your cool, because it says when you keep your cool and act despite fear, which is a different wording to Apocalypse's worlds. My tongue got real tight on that one.
I know, it's happening to me constantly.
Apocalypse worlds act under fire move, which I'm actually, hold on, let me see if I can pull it up real quick, because the wording, oh god, where is it? Okay. So act under fire says when you do something under fire or dig in to endure fire. So act under fire having this kind of like something bad is actively happening right now. Whereas keep your cool is saying when you keep your cool and act despite fear. So it has a little bit more of this kind of social bent to it, where it's saying it's not necessarily that something's bad is happening right this second, but maybe you're worried about repercussions or something like that. It's just an interesting, I mean, it makes sense. It's just an interesting reframing of the move. Because I could see you reading Apocalypse World and then seeing keep your cool and just assuming it works like act under fire and not reading it closely enough. Which honestly is probably actually the case for a couple of the moves.
Yes, and like, to be clear, the stay cool thing does allow you to like dig in while you're getting shot at, but it's also your ability to regroup after you just got schooled in like a debate, you know?
Yeah, it's less about immediate threat right this second and more about a combination of threat and social pressures.
Yes.
Which I suppose you could say applies to almost everything in the game.
Yes, we'll bring it up when it comes to the move run away.
There's not so much combat in this game, but there is a lot of social back and forth. You're sort of dancing around the what's the word I want? God, why can't I think? Wow, I'm blanking really hard. But you're dancing around the culture of, you know, when you were actually in high school, right? There's this thing you have to do where you have to, should I say this? Should I not? Who do I talk to? Who am I not allowed to talk to? All that weird bullshit that high school students do when you're trying to figure out how you fit in the social hierarchy and everything, of course, which all goes right out the fucking window once you get out of school, but whatever. The game focuses on that.
Way, really.
Yeah. The game focuses on that in a big way, so the tension of the game a lot of the time is navigating the social landscape and the faux pas and the like what the culture of the school is. Like that's the combat of the game. Even though you have the throw hands move, the throw hands move isn't really the combat of the game.
Not even a little bit.
The throw hands move is the like, I'm done with this conversation, I'm pulling a grenade. Right? Like, I'm just fuck this shit, I'm out.
I'm sorry. Just the idea of, you know what? Fuck this. Tink. And we're just like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of what it is, right? You just like throw a punch or whatever.
Yeah. It's a good segue to bring it up our next and arguably most controversial skill in the game, which is lash out physically.
Because controversial? You're going to say that one's controversial and not turn someone on?
Well, so I've seen some back and forth of people saying like, why is lash out physically even a move if there's no combat? Like there's not even there's no enemies in the game. There's no stat blocks. Mm-hmm. What is the point?
No stat blocks in Apocalypse World either.
Is that true?
Yeah, there's no stat blocks in Apocalypse World.
Oh, I thought there was. All right, is that Dungeon World?
Dungeon World has very loose stat blocks for monsters, but even those are barely stat blocks. They're basically just HP, damage, couple of tags. That's mostly it. No, Apocalypse World only really cares about how much damage is the person doing to you based on what kind of weapon they're trying to hurt you with and if they're wearing any armor, and that's kind of it. If you want to have a character who has anything special about them to give them like a stat block, quote unquote, you make them as a threat and then you give them custom moves.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I do wish that MonsterHearts had a little bit of like this is how you make a queen at, character. Like I can just read Apocalypse World, and I'm going to, but I do wish the game just had some bespoke shit for me.
I mean, you did already read Apocalypse World.
Yes, but I didn't read the like.
You mean read more thoroughly?
Yes. I didn't read the like enemies stuff very much.
I see.
But yeah, Lash Out physically. As I stated, it's your main method of attack. It's really the way that you're doing damage outside of a couple unique playbook moves. And it is the only skill. No, sorry. Runaway also lets you roll with volatile. I was going to say it's the only skill that has you run with volatile.
Yeah. The two physical things.
The two physical things, yeah. Lash Out physically is also cool because it's the only skill that allows you to access your darkest self voluntarily. And we'll talk about what your darkest self is.
Command.
I mean, TLDR, it is your monster form, right? If you're playing a werewolf, that is how you werewolf out, is by accessing your darkest self.
It's also just you being like kind of a piece of shit. You're like leaning into your... It's that moment you had in school where you curse somebody out, even though you probably shouldn't. Like you got a little, you said something a little too mean, went a little too in on him. It's that kind of a vibe.
Yes, it's you and your demon arc. Like you're just acting at your absolute worst. You're completely unabashed and uninhibited. You're cruel because you want to be. You're breaking shit because you want to be. You're breaking people because you want to. You really are just a fucker, and it's really cool and a lot of fun. After that, we do have your Runaway, and this is another one of those really fun things because Runaway can mean many things. It can be your ability to regroup in a conversation. It can be you literally running away to some sort of hideout, some safe space. It could be you retreating into your own mind and just shutting yourself off from the conversation to stop the pain. So edge, but like kind of true.
So edge.
Given context. I realized I probably should have mentioned. This is my fuck up. Same thing with Apocalypse World. Each move rolls off a very specific stat. So turn someone on, obviously, is hot. Shut someone down, cold. Keep your cool, also cold. Lash Out and Runaway are volatile. And then the one that we're going to talk about right now, Gaze into the Abyss, is the only move that rolls with the dark. Gaze into the Abyss is... what is the move called in Apocalypse World?
Connect to the psychic maelstrom. Look into this. Open your brain to the psychic maelstrom.
Yes, it is your ability to speak to the GM essentially in a weird, esoteric, riddle-filled way. It's. I don't want to say it's the help me I'm stuck button because it's not true, but it is something you can absolutely use it for.
Could be.
It could be, not that it necessarily is. But yeah, it is the meta narrative button, essentially. You can hit it to clue yourself as the player into parts of the meta plot that allows your characters to be clued in and continue on with the game. And I do kind of like that. I really like when games have this thing built in because it means that you can create more disconnected stories and still present a through line to achieve those goals, Because, it's a very real thing, not necessarily looking into the abyss, But let's say you're playing like detectives, you're doing like a Persona 4, where junior detectives thing. You can just have the case go cold because of some weird magic interference. And then you go, okay, well, we've tracked this person down, but there's no there's no fingerprints. What do we do? Well, let's gaze into the abyss and find out. It's really cool that that's a button. It gives the Master of Ceremonies a lot of fun options, and it gives the players a guaranteed, we can't soft lock ourselves out of the investigation.
It can also just be, I need some special extra details about a thing, kind of like it can also have a connotation of, it can also be a little bit like you're taking the GM's notes and being like, can I have a little gander at those?
Yeah.
There's lots of ways you could potentially use it. And as long as you and the GM are willing to have a little bit of back and forth about what it does, because obviously it isn't a move that can sort of get abused, because you could be like, GM, tell me exactly how to solve the problem. I would like to gaze into the abyss. And the GM might be like, no, fuck you. Or maybe they'll be like, well, no, but how about this? Or there's lots of ways you could go about it. You just got to have a little bit of a back and forth. Same as open your brain. The one thing I don't like, or not that I don't like, but I kind of am disappointed isn't there, I should say, is that the move does not imply what open your brain does, where it's like you ask something and then also the abyss asks you something back. They don't have that language for gaze into the abyss, I don't think.
They don't know.
Yeah.
It's sort of, they reference it as sort of this, like a similar thing, this like supernaturally connected realm where all the supernatural people can sort of understand, like it's a collective unconscious sort of for monsters, but there's no explicit language. I'm just sort of interpreting that based on what the game says, which isn't much.
Yeah, I mean, I would like a little more about that, but also if you're playing this game, I would say treat gaze into the abyss a little closer to open your brain to the psychic maelstrom and fuck with the players a little bit when they use it.
Yeah, just peep into the warp. The warp will always peep back.
Yeah, it adds a little
lick you in the face. Just,
how you doing? Slurpy slurp. Delicious.
Look, it's all fun and games till the demon of Zinch just gives you a little mwah. Like, what's the, oh god, what cartoon is it? I think it's SpongeBob, where it like something like licks SpongeBob and it goes in one side of his head, and then like you see it behind his eyeballs wriggling around, and it pops out the other side. You're just like,
probably SpongeBob.
Yeah, just do that with the abyss. Sorry, I just can't. Worth mentioning, because I did forget to bring this up again. Turn someone on is the main method by which you will be able to acquire strings throughout the game. And you might be asking,
it's also the main method to get your friends to do gay shit.
Correct. And you might be asking, what are strings? Don't worry, I'll tell you. Strings are, as far as I'm aware, the first of two, well, no, yeah, definitely first of two unique mechanics of the game, I would say, between this and Darkest Self. So the two very unique mechanics.
I would say strings is the main selling mechanic.
It is, for sure. Pulling strings, and that is what the move is called, is essentially the main mechanic that allows you to create a narrative currency, and it's by which most of the mechanics are built around. They act as your ability as a player and as a character to hold power and influence others. They allow you to tempt players to do what you want, which is very cool. And very specifically, the wording there, tempt them to do what you want, with the promise of experience. No matter how much string pulling or rolling to turn someone on you do, the game is very clear. Characters are always in control of their own agency. You cannot force a player to do anything. But this game is sort of built on a trust system where you are willing to let things happen for the sake of the progression of the plot, melodrama, and, to not break that code.
You also have a carrot in the stick system to reinforce it.
yes, the aforementioned experience does go a long way. It also allows you to assign conditions to characters, which have a unique function in the game. It allows you to get modifiers to your rolls, allowing you to roll with forward, which is just a static modifier or floating modifier of giving you a plus or minus one to the next roll you make. And this is a fun one, it actually allows you to increase harm whenever you hit things. If you're playing something like a werewolf, you're going to be using that a lot. Many playbooks also allow you to gain strings and pull them with their unique moves, and most of them have some really fun special effects.
Yeah, that's the most interesting interaction for me, is that you can whip out strings as a mechanic to interact with your playbook moves.
Yeah.
Or your skins moves in this case.
And they do the thing that I love with game mechanics. I've talked about this a bunch, that I want this to be a thing in D&D. It's a recharging mechanic. You don't just run out of strings. You gain them. You actively trade them with other players and the narrative itself.
They go up
to do
and
the
down
stuff
a
you
lot.
want. Yeah. Frankly, you're supposed to spend them pretty regularly. Like,
Go buck wild.
Unless you're playing something like The Witch or the Vampire, and their whole kit is about specifically saving your strings and not spending them, which is why a lot of their mechanics do not involve directly spending strings. And when they do, they're powerful abilities because you're giving up the thing that you want to hold on to. Every other playbook is just like, yeah, this uses a string, this uses a string, it just goes buck wild. Strings, again, are a way that you can gain something called conditions, which is another unique mechanic of the game. It's not entirely like, conditions are universal, but the way that MonsterHearts handles them is, I think, kind of unique and pretty fun. They are, as opposed to what you would think are like a poisoned, a stunned, whatever your D&D brain is telling you about conditions, kind of, but like not really. If that makes sense. Essentially, what they are.
Yeah, it's like they could be poisoned or stunned, but that's not exactly the idea. They're a little more free-form fiction-based than that.
Yes. Conditions are essentially narrative tags that are assigned to players or NPCs that, when you proc them through the narrative, give you a roll at +1 forward, gives you a +1 to your next roll, whenever the relevance of the tag is used against him. For example, if a character is given the condition nerd, anytime someone brings up the fact that they're a nerd, or, verbally lashes them for being a nerd, uses it against them in any way, they roll at +1 forward. And they are permanent, effectively. You can get rid of them. You absolutely can do it. But they can only be removed if you, as a player or an NPC, take steps to revolve them at their source. So, in the aforementioned bully example, if you stand up to your bully and you punch that motherfucker in his face, that will effectively cure your resolve your condition. You've stood up and against the label, therefore it no longer affects you, therefore it is resolved. I like this a lot.
Yeah, conditions is fun. Any kind of game that lets you slap on fictional. Hold on. How do I describe this so it makes sense? I know what I mean, but how do I convey that by what I'm trying to say? A status effect of some kind where it is fictionally derived, and then I'm going to use Apocalypse World's language. That's what we're going to do here. A game where it lets you apply a status effect of some kind descriptively that then can be used prescriptively in a mechanic later on is like some of my favorite shit in pretty much any game. Another great example of a game we're playing right now is Fabulous Trait System, where you have your origin, your dry, or your origin, your theme, and your, what's the other one? I'm forgetting one. Background? No.
Yes.
I don't know. Yes?
Yeah.
You have your 3 character traits, and those are descriptive in that my character is a fallen knight or whatever. And then they're prescriptive mechanically when you tap into your character's theme of fallen knight and then, or identity of fallen, that's what it was. Identity, theme, and origin. You tap into your identity of fallen knight to then re-roll dice and potentially, you know, make a roll better or whatever. That kind of back and forth of like fictional idea fueling mechanical thing. Basically, I'm always into that. And that's exactly what the conditions are in Monster Hearts.
Yeah.
I will say, though, the thing that is funny about them, and I said this on the Lost recording, but I was confused when I first read them because I thought conditions were going to be health in this game, because a lot of newer Apocalypse World games or newer PBTA games use conditions as a health tracker. The two prominent examples I can think of are Masks, A New Generation, and Avatar Legends, where you take a condition and it mechanically affects you in some fashion. So it'll be like, oh, you're angry, so you have -2 to this stat or whatever. But also your conditions are your health tracker, because if you max out your conditions, you're out of the scene. You're out of the potentially the session, the scene, the situation, you know, it kind of depends on what's going on, but you're taken out, you're dead, quote unquote. There's no normal health tracker in those games because in young superhero fiction and in Avatar, characters don't really die unless it's like like it's a big deal. It's dramatic, right? When Plea dies in Legend of Korra, it's a big fucking deal that she just, you know, popped her head like a kumquat. Like, it's a big moment. Characters don't just die randomly from Gabo Shido shooting, you know. Good
old Glup Shido.
Glup Shido, yeah. Characters don't just die from Glup Shido shooting them in the ass with an arrow like they do in D&D. So those games use conditions to represent health instead. Monster Hearts doesn't do that, which is what I thought conditions was gonna be. It does use traditional harm, and Monster Hearts does say you can die in the traditional way, although it's very hard to die in Monster Hearts because you have two very reliable protections. I think, honestly, probably if there was a Monster Hearts 3rd edition, I bet you money that they would look at conditions and probably use them a bit more like they are in Masks, I would think.
I could see that for sure.
It's just another interesting example of Monster Hearts design being an older version of PBTA as opposed to the current one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just another weird little spot I noticed.
To that point, I don't necessarily dislike that there is harm, because I think harm probably feels better if you're playing the werewolf or the ghoul, where, you know, sort of my beef with Avatar Legends is if I shoot a fireball at someone as a firebender, in my head, there's like some weird ludonarrative Disco Biscuits where I'm hitting them with a fireball, but they're getting the condition of like down and out versus just hitting that motherfucker with a fireball.
Well, it is worth pointing out that when you attack NPCs, they don't use conditions. They use a fatigue track.
True.
So it is a little different for them. But I do get what you mean in that sometimes, yes, conditions, they are damage mechanically, but they don't always feel like damage, and there can be some weirdness with that depending. It just feels a little weird to use normal harm in Monster Hearts because presumably characters aren't dying a lot or getting into fights a lot, you know?
Yeah, it's not expected that you get into fights a bunch. So that's why they bring up the aforementioned, if you punch someone in the face, that's a big deal.
Yeah. I don't know. I could see it going either way, but I just wouldn't be surprised if it got reworked into something, the like health system got reworked into some kind of condition thingy if there was a 3rd edition of Monster Hearts. Right.
On the topic of skirting death, worth bringing up. So, pretty similar to Apocalypse World with some key deviations. In AW, you can, in theory, die up to 4 times before death is permanent. In Monster Hearts, technically, there is no hard cap on how many times you can avoid death. but the wording is broad. Essentially, what that means is you could go down infinite times so long as you either have strings to burn or you are not in your darkest self.
You just want to keep being an evil shitlord.
Yeah. The two qualifiers for being unable to skirt death, and we're sort of inferring, it doesn't actually say this, but you can pretty much come to this conclusion, is if you have no strings, and what that means is every time you go down and skirt death, you lose all of your strings on everybody. To sort of narratively describe that you've lost
face.
You've lost face. You're at your most vulnerable.
You look like a dork.
Powerless.
You got the shit beat out of you. Got the shit kicked out of you. So everyone's like, oh, I don't know that guy.
Yeah. Or you die while in your darkest self. If you are not in your darkest self and you go down, you go into your darkest self. So if those two conditions are met, presumably you can actually die. If not, you can have like game doesn't say this, but you could sort of extrapolate with some advanced fuckery and say maybe if you go down a certain way, let's say you go from you're a vampire and then you are unable to skirt death, you come back as a ghost. And that could be a narrative enough for why you are a different thing now, but you're still playing that character.
Yeah.
The game does actually encourage you, though, to say sometimes you just don't get back up. You could have all your strings, you could be not in your darkest self, but if you go down and it makes narrative sense, just die. If you get shot, just go down, let it happen. And sometimes that could be more interesting narratively than being a sort of unstoppable, unkillable little demigod, you know?
Sorry, did you just hear my phone go off?
No.
No, okay. Somehow my phone's ringer just got turned on for a second there and it just went off and I was just like, who the fuck? Where the hell? Because I literally never have my ringer on, so it just like freaked me out. I was like, what the shit was that?
Yeah, I don't either. I
literally
can't imagine.
never.
Couldn't be
anyway, me. Sorry. That threw me off completely. Yes, the game does say yes. Maybe sometimes you should just, eat shit and die, I guess.
Yeah.
It doesn't phrase it that way, but, it'd be kind of funny if it did, though.
It really would. I kind of love it.
Eat shit and die.
And, you go down, you begin to skirt death once you hit four harm, as opposed to Apocalypse's 6.
6, yeah.
So it is easier to go down in this. And the way it's actually pretty effective the way it's described. If you take one arm, that's like someone just busted your nose and you are bleeding profusely from the face. 2 harm is you essentially got stabbed or have a broken bone. 3 harm is you are severely hurt. 4 harm is you are mortally wounded. They describe 4 harm as getting hit by a car. So, it tells you just about how sturdy the players are.
I mean, getting hit by a car in the real life could be lethal, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense.
And you might be like, okay, well, if I get hurt, how dost one fix my boo-boo? Good question.
Homoerotic asphyxiation.
Literally. Healing in this game, as opposed to Apocalypse World, is universal. You do not need to be an angel to effectively heal or be healed by someone. It can be done by any player, though typically you are only able to heal 1 harm per scene, unless another character heals you, and I quote, delicately and intimately, with some erotic undertones. So have fun with that. That's good. And if that happens...
Basically what we're saying is you heal better if you kiss the homies goodnight.
Yes, if you kiss the homies goodnight, you just give them a little slap on the ass on the way out. That can heal them an additional slot to 2, so that could be, help me, I'm dying, to I have boo-boo. Baby have boo-boo. Worth bringing up, gangs are a returning feature from Apocalypse World. They are almost painfully simplified, which is to say they have no mechanics. Well, all they allow you to do is when it's relevant, you get +1 forward. That's it.
No, isn't it also? No, it's +1 harm, isn't it? Oh no, it's harm.
Sorry, yeah, +1 harm or forward, yeah.
And a +1 to rolls. Yeah, I mean, they're not. Here's the thing: gangs in gangs in Apocalypse World itself weren't that complicated anyway. So it's not that simplified, but it is, I don't know. Yeah, it is a little bit toned down, but I kind of get it. Like, it's not as big of a deal.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that it's not that every single playbook has a gang option, and there's a whole playbook built around having a gang with the queen.
True.
I feel like at the very least, we should have gotten some expanded rules for the queen gang. Maybe you make them a little cooler, but you also give them bigger stipulations.
I mean, again, Apocalypse World didn't really do anything with it, so I'm kind of fine with it as is. In Apocalypse World, I liked it as just a good simplified way to bring in mass combat, you know?
I suppose.
So, I don't know. I didn't want anything else out of it that really.
Fair enough. We sort of already spoke about Darkest Self, so we will move on to seasons, because we talked about those early on.
I believe
seasons
it's
are the de
summer
facto.
right now.
What's up?
I believe it's summer right now.
Not yet. We got 17 days.
Whatever.
Seasons are the de facto arcs for this game. Anytime the game moves from like maybe one semester to another school year or through graduation, that's considered a season. And typically, the game does say that it's meant to be played in short, one-off contained campaigns, but they do give you the option, if you want longer form content, to run seasons as an alternative. At the start of a new season, the players are given several advancement options to keep playing and having things feel fresh and fun. When you start a new season, at the very least, you reset all of your advancement options. You keep what those advancements were. So like, let's say you're playing a ghoul and you want the vampire's hypnotize ability. You uncheck the fact that you took another skin ability, but you keep hypnotize. They just become part of your core sheet, which is cool because you can, over the course of 4 seasons, if you're doing semesters, amass a huge quantity of unique abilities. The game does warn that maybe you shouldn't go that long, because then the magic of gaining a new move kind of loses its luster when you're just sort of min-maxing at that point, but you do have the option for those of you maniacs out there.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to change your skin if you want. So if in the narrative you were a ghost who got brought back to life, maybe you can play as a queen or a mortal.
Yeah.
Or
seasons are how you, for the Apocalypse World comparison, are how you whip out the advanced moves.
Yes, and we do have our own advanced moves called growing up moves over here in Monster, which is cool.
Well, the stuff like the taking a new playbook, I think, is also phrased as an advanced move in Apocalypse World. Or no, it's an advanced improvement. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. Advanced. This is how you unlock your advanced improvements.
Right.
That's what I was looking for.
The growing up moves are pretty cool. We're not going to go into them in too much detail here, but they effectively allow you to do interrupts, essentially. So,
well, one of them allows you to do an interrupt.
One of them does. The other ones allow you to just shut down, like literally shut down the bullshit in a very grown-up way, right? If someone is spreading rumors, you can just tell them to fuck off, and that's your grown-up move.
Yeah.
And it removes, like, it for free removes conditions, it removes strings, it can give people conditions.
Yeah, the grown-up moves are just cool because they really give, they're a mechanical backing to really reinforce that narrative of your character literally growing up and learning things and getting better in life. Masks also has something similar to grow, because interesting, and Mask may have actually taken this from MonsterHearts, I don't know, but Mask has a mechanic where grown-ups are a specific type of NPC, and if a grown-up tells you to do something in Mask, grown-ups have their own moves that only they can do that can actually influence your character in different ways. So a grown-up can literally alter your stats in Masks because your stats are not static in Masks. So if a grown-up basically scolds you for being too violent, it can increase your, I forget what the stat is called. It might be called violent, It can increase your stat that is involved in like fighting and doing shit like that, and decrease a different stat. So this is a similar thing. It's an interesting way to be like, these little shithead kids are, learning through life, and it gives you that mechanical backbone. It's just a good, elegant marrying of fiction and mechanics.
It really is elegant. I think that's the perfect way to put it. It's effective, it's simple, and it works. And that is one of the things I feel like I have to praise MonsterHearts for, and Powered by the Apocalypse in general, but I really like the way MonsterHearts does it at times. It's no nonsense. Like, there's no fat in like the best way possible. I like it a lot. What else to say?
Yeah.
Now, you might be like, all right, cool. So you're talking about the monsters. What can I be? What can I play as? How can I embrace my truest cringe?
You don't want to go over the grown-up moves?
Yeah, well, that's what I said. We don't have to. Like, we can if you want.
I mean, there's only 4 of them. I don't know. Just describe them broadly. I mean, not like, I don't need to get super detailed, but I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let me just find them real quick. Where'd they go? Oh no. I don't know why I'm doing rest and efforts right now. Let me alone.
I was gonna say you voice acting. We have the power of PDF.
There we go. The grow-up moves are make others feel beautiful. This is sort of it's funny. They're almost like evolutions to the base moves.
Well, yeah, that's because that's how they worked in Apocalypse World.
Right. Make others feel beautiful is kind of like an evolved version of turn someone on. You're recognizing someone and acknowledging them for what makes them great that isn't their body. You essentially use this as a buff, essentially, to give people or to remove things like conditions or allow them to mark experience.
Yeah, just
or
give them
forward. Yeah. It's whereas turn someone on is you are rolling on someone to take something from them. With make
others feel
beautiful. Yes, with make others feel beautiful, you are sort of doing the opposite. You are giving to them, which is very nice. The second one is call people on their shit. Obviously, it's the evolved version of shut someone down. And this is really fun because you essentially just go, no. And you can remove strings from people or force them to back down narratively. So even if another player is losing the argument, if you just call someone on their shit, you create an opening in the narrative for someone to maybe roll again or roll against them or bring up a different point, which is very fun. Finally, you have intervene on an act of violence. This is the interrupt. So if someone rolls to lash out physically or there's an NPC attacking, you can intervene to just interrupt that and stand in front of it. And now that does say that you are likely to take whatever harm that someone else will give you, but there is an equal chance that you force that person to stop attacking and effectively just make them waste the turn, which is kind of cool in of itself. Mm-hmm. After that, there's share your pain, which is sort of, again, like an opposite to run away, whereas run away is specifically about protecting yourself. Share your pain is about allowing someone to become vulnerable and help them through whatever they're going through. And it allows you to remove a condition from yourself, allow someone else to remove a condition from themselves, take forward, or give it away. The mechanics in each of these moves are quite similar, but the avenues by which you can use them shift. I think that's what makes them particularly interesting.
Yes, and they all... the avenues in which you use them, they all are, I'm blanking again. God damn it. Fictionally, they're all saying something a little bit different about your character, right? When you intervene on acting violence or call people on their shit, you're fictionally doing something a little different that everyone has to acknowledge. Like if you call someone on their shit, it's like you're making a point of being like, you're being a fuckhead, sir. Well, please stop. You know, it has like a poignant moment to it almost.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas share your pain is like you're being consoling. It's like different kinds of being grown up, right? Consoling someone versus getting in the way when somebody is doing something they shouldn't versus calling a stupid kid out because he really is just being a dumb jackass. You know, it's different ways of adulting.
Exactly.
It hits a little too close to home if you think about it too much, so don't think about it too much.
Yeah. Now we can get to the skins, as they're called. Josh doesn't like the word skins. I still don't like the word skins. I kind of love them, I'm not gonna lie. I think it works. The idea that you are stepping into the skin of someone else.
I get it. I do. Like, I fully understand it. I just don't like the word, but I also don't know what a better alternative is, so I just begrudgingly go with it.
Yeah, I think that's that point exactly. I don't know what else I would call it, given
the only other word I'm gonna say is playbooks. So,
and like, yeah, that works, but I don't feel like
it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Really. No, playbooks. I'm not gonna say playbooks fits better than skins in this context.
Yeah,
that's what I'm used to.
It does the job. Well, now the skins that you can be are. We'll do it like we did before. Brief. Just go over them by proper noun, and then we can kind of get into some of the descriptions. The Fae, the Ghost, the Ghoul, different thing. The Hollow, the Infernal, the Mortal, the Queen, the Vampire, the Werewolf, and the Witch.
The Vavitch.
Burn the Witch.
Burn the Witch. I want to run my fingers through his hair, and I'm just a voice. Only if you stop with that stupid theme music.
Oh my god, brother.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I like Ghoul and Werewolf. I also like Witch.
Apparently we're just sharing brain cells. Yeah, I mean, Werewolf and Ghost are tied for my favorite. I like Ghoul. I don't necessarily know how much I like how one-note Ghoul's mechanics are. Makes it sort of not as good for
I like being a little bit of a slave to my chore, like having a chore to deal with kind of thing.
I like the chore. I just don't like that the chore is the whole mechanic.
I guess. I don't know. That doesn't bother me. I do like the Witch a lot, though.
The Witch has some really fun shit
going on. The hexes are very fun.
I think my favorite one is Wither. It do be a hit.
You just have a bad time.
With some, not like, specifically the last thing it suggests is kind of wild.
Yeah.
We'll get into it.
It's probably still Werewolf for me, but I also
just because Werewolf has the only you straight up transform into a monster one.
That helps, but also because I just like werewolves in fiction a lot.
I do also like werewolves.
I just like werewolves.
Ironically,
like in the whole vampire versus werewolf thing, I've always thought werewolves were cooler.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm pretty much in the same boat. I do really like vampires. Shame I don't really like vampire in this game because it is a different vampire than the one that I want, which is the like slave to my fucking beast inside.
Yeah, it's a very specific kind of vampire.
Yeah, for me, peak vampires, World of Darkness vampires. This is not that. Ironically, the World of Darkness vampire is the ghoul. So if you wanted to,
yeah,
like you wanted to just say you're playing a ghoul, but you're like, actually, I'm just a different kind of vampire. I think that's valid. And the game sort of tells you can do that anyway. You can retool a skin to fit your needs. You might be like, all right, but how are these different? How do they play? What do they do? What's going on here? I got you, bud. We'll start at the top. The Fae, aka the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. The Fae is built around and it's built about making promises and relying on other people by learning their secrets.
Can I just say for a brief moment, I really don't like the art for the Fae.
Yeah.
Something about that dude makes me uncomfortable, and I really cannot explain or put it into words. I don't like the way he's posted up. I don't like his face, his nips out. I don't know. There's something going on there. I don't know. I know that's probably a photo of a real person, so like, I am sorry, but something about that picture makes me uncomfortable.
Almost certainly, yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Your main method of play are promises. And you might be like, what does that mean?
They're fairy
What does
contracts.
it mean? That's kind of up to you. You have your fairy contract, which is to say, anytime someone gives you their word, makes a promise to you, swears you an oath, just tells you that they're going to do something, and they don't do it, you have a narrative compulsion to seek revenge on them for it by either manipulating them, physically attacking them, getting back at them, however that may manifest. It's about retribution. And it's about following your passions, right? You rely on a lot as the Fae because you are tempting people to make those promises to you. It's funny, in some weird ways, it has a really strong moral implication. And it does a pretty good job, I think, when outside of the promise stuff, at embodying people who just live alternative lives. I think it's kind of fun. Oh, sorry, worth mentioning. The sex moves are back, and they're better than ever.
Sex moves.
Yes. The sex moves are back, and they're better than ever. Each one is unique. Each one feels good to like use, and I know it sounds weird. Sorry, I should say feels fun. That makes more sense. It feels fun to run, and it has like, yes, it has like actual.
What was the
narrative.
one I didn't like? There was one I was like, most of these are good. This one sucks. Can't remember what it was though.
I think it's the ghoul. You just get another hunger.
No, that was you who didn't like that.
Oh, right, that was me.
That one didn't bother me as much. Yeah, what was the? Anyway, keep talking. I'll look.
Fair enough. On the topic of morality, I think it's worth mentioning before we go into the other ones. Skins can essentially be played two ways. Either you play against your skin, and narratively, this is like a desperate attempt to maintain your humanity against your monstrous side. Or you completely embrace your skin and all of its faults. And the thing that you're fighting in that case is morality, that pesky morality that just sort of itches at the back of your brain. So characters like the Fae and the Witch play really hard on the do you embrace or do you fight it? But after the Fae, you have the Ghost. I gave each of these a little tagline. So for Fae, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. For Ghost, the embodiment of trauma. The Ghost personifies pain and the isolation of trauma in all its forms: physical, mental, emotional. The trauma in this game takes the shape of your death. As a ghost, you died. You were a normal person who died. And a part of that trauma and resolving that trauma is finding out how you died, who killed you, where's your body, all of the above. But it really focuses around resolving that trauma and being a weird loner. Part of your abilities is just to like walk through walls and stalk people.
Just follow people around for no particular reason.
Yeah.
The one that annoyed me, by the way, sex move wise, is the Infernal, because it's just the dark power loses a string on you and gains a string on whoever you had sex with.
Right. Yeah.
Which is not... It's kind of a basic one. It does play into their other abilities, so it's not as bad as I initially thought once I considered a little bit more, but it is a little basic on the face of it. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it has some fun implications, but it in of itself is kind of just all right.
By itself, it's not clear what it does 100%. The one that I love the most is the Hollow, though.
The Hollow's
the one where you both secretly write down if the sex was confusing or soothing and then reveal it at the same time. And if you pick the same answer, you both get XP.
Yep. That one is
and I just love that one because every time you both pick up the card and it's a different answer, you just look at each other like, what you mean, bud?
Yeah, you're like, oh.
Yeah?
You're like, yeah.
Oh.
Huh. I don't know how I feel
remember
about that. Yeah.
I'll remember
that. The Ghost gets heavy. And I think you, as someone who's picking the Ghost, need to be prepared. Because you function off of you taking conditions from people. Either the condition traumatized when someone brings up your death, or any other condition. Like so far, I'm running a one shot of this. our ghost player already has 2 conditions, terrified and traumatized, because people keep bringing up the fact that she died. Unknowingly, but they are bringing it up.
I would like to point out, there is also some potential to play the ghost this is very much not the intention, but if you wanted, I feel like there's a lot of potential to play the ghost as a big joke character. If you wanted to, because I think you could do a thing where you kind of like make a little bit of like you have their death be something ridiculous and then make a funny out of how they died all the time, and then them following people around and stuff, you just make awkward and weird. Like, I think you could reframe it.
Q. You should play Sam's character Q in fucking Blades in the Dark.
Yeah, like you could reframe it in such a fashion where it's like very much from kind of a goofy angle. If you really like, your death could be you got hit by Truck Coon or something. You know what I mean? Like, I could see a realm where you could do that if you really wanted to. It's very much not the intention, but I was just throwing it out because I had the thought.
I don't know. I was not as on board, but Truck Coon kind of convinced me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if you reframe it, I think that potential's there.
Yeah, fair enough. After the ghost, we have the ghoul. Feed your addiction. I mean hunger. The ghoul plays on the idea of addiction and urges and is represented through your hungers. They aren't specific, right? There's not a hunger for flesh or sex or drugs. The hungers are thematic. So either you're an adrenaline junkie, you are...
Although if you pick the one thrills, you could definitely be doing a lot of drugs with the thrills one.
You can, yeah. But it really, let's see, drugs. They are fear, power, plunder, or thrills. So you might have a hunger in just terrorizing people and being a piece of shit, playing towards your bad side. Power, trying to be the most popular kid in school and reveling in like powering over people. Plunder, that's probably gonna be the sex one, if not for thrills. Yeah. Or just stealing, just being a fucking klepto. You can do that too. And then finally, thrills, boning, drugs, adrenaline, skydiving without a parachute because you're gonna walk it off literally. The ghost is you are a zombie. You died and came back with a hunger for flesh. Actually, in your darkest self.
The ghoul is... you said ghost before, ghoul. But I would say it's not so much that you're like... Yes, you're zombie coded, but I think it's much more you're a fantasy D&D-esque ghoul, which is to say you're a little more awares. You're not just shambling around, but yes, you definitely have that urge to like eat flesh or something like that. You know,
you're a sentient zombie. You did die like the ghost.
A sentient zombie, yeah.
Really, your soul departed, your body remained, and it is hungry. Well, actually, that could be kind of fun if 2 players played the same character, but one was a ghost, the other was a ghoul.
Oh, yeah.
And like the argument could just be that they're twins,
or it's the same. It's literally the same person. It's just one's the spirit of the person who died, and one's the body.
Well, yeah, but like how it like the characters would just lie and say that they're twins because they look the exact same because they still have to go to school together.
Right.
The ghoul is kind of funny because like the werewolf, it is about as close as you're going to get to a combat class. It and the werewolf are the only, never mind. The hollow also gets volatile too. But they're the ones that like really have the you hurt shit. Like hell, the ghoul's darkest self is your dull hunger sharpens. You can't focus on anything. You must crave flesh. So you just got to rip and tear until it is done.
Also, you get satiety, which is when you satiate your hunger, you can, or no, oh, sorry, I read that wrong. Never mind. Disregard that. You heal 1 harm, so never mind that.
Yeah, you heal 1 harm.
Yeah, like, yeah, the ghoul and the werewolf are a little more violent, for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I was kind of the teenager who, like, I wore a lot of black and a lot of baggy clothes. And, I was definitely that kid that brought a knife to school, so everyone thought I was gonna be a quote unquote problem child.
I mean, I still wear a lot of black.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I brought a knife to school since I was in middle school. It was probably like 13 when I started.
That doesn't even remotely surprise me.
It was never about self-defense, hilariously. It was always about like cutting paper or like eating an orange or something. It just made practical sense to have this thing on me. So I did.
That's the most Isaiah-esque answer.
I carry that. Look, that's why I carry a knife with me all the time. The college we went to was like, no knives allowed on campus. And I brought that knife to school every day, and every professor knew I had it. No one questioned it. Yeah. In fact, one of our professors was like, I gotta cut some. Isaiah, I know you have one. Give me a knife. I just kind of looked at him like, okay. Like, what am I gonna say? No, I don't. And you can call me a liar? No.
Yeah, I can call you a fucking liar.
Yeah.
I ain't called you a
truther. I said no. You know, like a liar.
Like a liar.
Look, I'll say this till the cows come home. Knife is the first tool, infinitely useful. A good knife's got 1,001 uses. Anyway, moving on.
I think the first tool is really just big rock, but yeah, sure.
I mean, yes. But the argument is that the knife was the first ever tool.
Yeah. Broadly speaking, yeah.
Up next, we got the Hollow, literally the saddest boy. The Hollow is a playbook.
Soul, right?
Yes, yeah, you're a person without a soul. So yeah, I guess, sorry. The Hollow is a person without a soul. The Hollow plays more towards like the Frankenstein's monster kind of vibe, in my opinion.
Sorta.
But the Hollow is deeply ingrained in the ideas of depression and imposter syndrome. In fact, its abilities actively reward you for failing and almost incentivize you to fail and allow you to not only borrow from other playbooks, but switch your stats kind of on a whim.
Switch your stats on a whim, what?
Well, so it is permanent, but you can take it several times to keep changing your stat. Strange Impressions, or is it there's one of them that lets you, when you gaze into the abyss on a 7 or higher, you can permanently swap two of your stats. Oh, that's right.
You swap your stats. Yes, yeah. Yeah, I love the one that says add a +1 to any rolls you make while lying.
Yes, it's just called fake.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That almost feels like a queen coded move.
Sort of.
Clearly not, but it almost feels like it should be, you know?
It's not, but yeah, I kind of see what you're saying.
The Hollow's cool because it also serves as like I don't really know what I want to play, so I'm going to just play the Hollow because, again, you have an easier time taking moves from other classes or from other playbooks.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that way. It also is one of the few skins that do not have a mandatory move. So with Ghoul, you have your Hunger, Ghost has Unresolved Trauma, and Fae have the Fairy contracts. Hollow is the first one that does not have one. The one that comes after it, though, the Infernal, does also have a mandatory move, and the Infernal is the Demonic Sugar Daddy.
Demonic Sugar Daddy.
The Infernal deals with vicious cycles of abuse, both mental and emotional, and, brings up some pretty uncomfy topics like power dynamics in relationships.
Yeah, it's specifically about like a relationship abuse situation because you have a dark power that has control over you in some capacity.
Yes, and that is literal. When you enter your darkest self, your patron, it's one of those things where you have consent but are heavily not quite punished, but you're effectively told like you do on some level kind of got to go with it to a point, right?
Yeah, because if
you as a player are made uncomfortable, you at any time can say no, I'm not doing that. But
if you go against it, one of the moves has a punishment or something, doesn't it? Oh, well, I guess basically the idea is the dark entity can forcibly trigger your darkest self is kind of the main.
Right, yeah.
That's the main thing. It's sort of the warlock, but the warlock in the very melodramatic teen drama kind of way.
Right, yeah. Sorry, yeah. If you don't do it, it brings you closer to your darkest self. And then essentially your patron can just start fucking with you by pulling strings. So, correction, what I did say, you can say no at any time, but those strings will just keep stacking, and then it's harder and harder and harder and harder to get rid of.
Yeah, you could say self. No, but there is a degree of punishment, mechanically speaking.
Yeah. I really like the Infernal. I wouldn't play it. I would have no reason to want to play one. But I do like the idea that you have a more narratively justifiable reason to gaze into the abyss constantly with your patron. Just being like, Papa,
yeah, true.
Help.
Papa, I have a question. Papa says, no, you suck. And then you're like, I am sad now.
Yeah, you're like, but why?
Because I said so.
Gotta do it to him. My least favorite skin is next, the Mortal. I deeply dislike the Mortal. What's my tagline for it? The girlfriend. Yeah.
I feel like your hatred for it is a little overblown, I'll be honest.
I don't know what it is. It makes me irrationally mad. And I'm aware that's rational. The Mortal is it's also about power dynamics and a relationship abuse, but you are the abusee, which is kind of fascinating. It's about codependency.
That's not exactly how I would phrase it.
The abusey thing maybe, but it is about codependency. Like 100%.
It's about codependency. That part I get, yeah.
But like to a toxic degree, like a very toxic degree. Its main moves involve around the Lover, which is another character that you pick at the start of game, and giving them bonuses and receiving bonuses from them when you rely upon them. So their move, I'm not going to go into them, but like their names: mess with me, mess with him, entrenched, sympathy is my weapon, excuses are my armor, downward spiral, and down the rabbit hole. You just the most pathetic little shit. What is it? Right, yeah, their sex move is kind of fun. When you have sex with someone, it awakens something sinister within them. Next time you take your eyes off of them, they become their darkest self.
Yeah.
You just make people really unhealthily codependent and trigger their worst traits when they're not around you. Yeah. That's kind of wild.
It's a choice.
That one creates a really funny conflict with, for example, the werewolf, because you cannot enter your darkest self while the sun is up. Like specifically, like your darkest self ends when the sun rises, so you are kind of immune to that.
I mean,
you're just so independent that you ignore the codependency until the sun goes down.
I mean, I was gonna say I would probably rule that it happens later, like once the sun does go down, it just happens no matter what kind of thing.
Yeah, unless there's nothing you do. Once they leave their sight, you're cooked.
Yeah.
Up next, we have the Queen, aka the Heathers. Alexa, play Dead Girl Walking, my favorite song. The Queen's whole thing is manipulation in a similar way to the Fae and the Witch, but ultimately different. The Queen is about being on top of the hierarchy and putting everyone else around you down to your own benefit. You get a unique skill, your Clique, which is like just a straight up gang that you get to start the game with, and they have some pretty fun narrative implications, like them having guns. Your characters are late high schoolers, so characters just having guns that go to school with you, kind of crazy. Having money and designer drugs, being in a band or sports team, or being cultists with dark oaths and willingness to die.
I just so side note, I would love to play the Queen, and it doesn't say this, but I would love the idea of playing the Queen and you're actually like a weird insect bee lady.
Yeah, you're just fucking Tavora. That would be cool.
Yeah, you're some sort of weird insect creature that hides it most of the time. Because like the queen is sort of vague on whether you have any kind of magical influence over them or not. But I don't know. I love the idea that you have like weird pheromones or some shit.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Or if you go with the cultist option, you have a weird spell on them, and you're a crazy witch lady. Or witch.
It is
dude.
one of the unfortunate ones that like not all of the monster forms or your darkest selves are explicitly monstrous forms. I kind of wish they played into that more. I know the point is that it's supposed to be metaphorical, but
yes,
it's one of the ones where I kind of want it to be more literal. Like me personally. Honestly,
I would say like it's kind of half and half if your monstrous form is actually monstrous.
Yeah. The vampire is not
vampire. Well, vampires don't look that different, so but like ghoul and werewolf probably are. Fae is kind of up in the air. Infernal, maybe you demon out. Maybe I guess that's up to you.
The ghost is you straight up go poltergeist.
Yeah, the
ghost, hollow, and werewolf are the two like explicitly monstrous ones. Whereas like they describe it in the move itself.
Yeah.
After that, though, we have the vampire, which is really it's got a lot of really fun stuff, but it kind of makes me sad how much I don't really care for it. The vampire, your consent is unnecessary, because while the infernal and mortal play with the idea of problematic power dynamics, the vampire embodies it, and you are the top of the food chain there. Your whole thing is about manipulating people by just taking their ability to say no away with hypnosis. And granted, there are caveats to hypnosis. It's not just I can make you do whatever I want. But there is a lot you can make them do. And unlike any of the other ones, the vampire is the most to do with temptation, but never giving people what they want. Get them close, make them promises. Don't break the promises, but always lead them on, just by a little bit. You just pull the carrot away just enough to stop them from grabbing it. So much so that their sex move is actively a debuff. If you have sex with someone, you lose all of your strings on them. That's it. That's the whole move. So you're actively de-incentivized from using your sex move. But you should still use it if the narrative says, or if the narrative makes sense. If your cold-hearted vampire manipulator does fall in love, it makes sense that you lose your ability to manipulate someone you genuinely care about. That's the magic.
That's the sauce.
The sauce. Next, we got the werewolf, my favorite skin. Hashtag, in all ways beside physical, I am a wolf, except I am physically a werewolf, so it's fine.
Maybe my beef with the word skins, I just realized, is because I just have associated the word skins with video game skins in like a free-to-play game, and that's
fair.
That just fucks with me.
That's completely possible. I could see that.
I just thought about it randomly for some reason when you said that. I was like, maybe that's why I don't like that phrase. Anyway.
Yeah.
The werewolf.
You're a werewolf. Yeah, it really, the werewolf embodies passion.
Angry.
Like, truest form of passion. Be that rage, desire, love, whatever you do it in the highest decibel, and you make sure everybody knows.
But also, doggo want friends.
Yes, but also doggo want friends.
Because your sex move for the werewolf is when you have sex with someone, you establish a deep spiritual connection with them until either of you breaks that spirit connection by having sex with someone else. Add +1 to all rolls made to defend them. You can tell when the connection has been broken. You just doggo want friend.
Yep.
Like very deeply offended if somebody like cheats on you, basically.
Yeah, if you get cheated on. So I took that shit personal.
Yeah. And then you turn into angry monster man and smash.
Yes, and there's only two ways to leave your darkest self as a werewolf. Either hurt the person you care about the most, or wait for the sun to go up. And that is some peak melodrama.
Both which are rough.
Yeah. The werewolf as you could probably assume, given that, has deep mechanical and narrative connections with their darkest self. And I think this is, above all else, what exemplifies the idea of either combating or embracing your darkest instincts. Do you just go apeshit, or do you desperately try to hold it in?
Because if you just go
kill
apeshit,
everyone you love.
Because if you just go apeshit, you could just solve this problem right now.
Yeah. You'd kill everyone you love, but you would solve the problem.
Well, yeah, you kill everyone you like, but you also kill everyone you don't like.
Yeah, I like. And then there's no one left to bother you. I see this as an absolute win.
Yeah, something like that.
Finally, we have the Witch, Isaiah's personal trauma made manifest.
The Vavitch.
Vavitch. The Witch is an interesting skin because, like the other manipulators, it plays on those themes. But the Witch is not about being the top of the food chain. It's not about exacting some sort of moral justice. The Witch is about revenge. Flat out.
Yeah.
You put people in positions to where you are wronged, and then you exact your revenge by cursing them. Which is kind of wild. It is
sir,
like
they're hexes.
Okay, yeah, sure, all right. What are you, my ex-girlfriend?
Yes.
Cries. Hence why it's Isaiah's trauma made manifest. Yeah, you just hex the poor fools who pissed you off, knowingly or otherwise, because you set odd, arbitrary standards for justice, and then you get pissed when people don't match those unfair standards. It's great. It genuinely is so funny.
Yeah. Also, your sex move is you get a sympathetic token, which is a special mechanic where the witch gains tokens to create strings on people, which is, you know, it's the idea of like, I have a lock of their hair or a piece of their clothing, and thus I have power over them. That kind of vibe.
Just start making straw dolls, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the witch is really fun. The hexes themselves are kind of great. The ones we were talking about before. My favorite of the hexes is called Wither. It is, and I quote, is the only one I'm going to quote. The hexed lose all of their hair, or their teeth begin to fall out, or their period arrives unexpectedly and heavily, or their skin gets all sickly and yellow and spotty. Whatever the specifics, it's bad. That middle one there, the literally I cast menstrual cramps, that is next fucking
menstrual
level.
cramps.
You can literally cast fucking testicular torsion on somebody.
I cast testicular torture. Ah! Dies.
And I love that. It's my favorite one.
It's so rude, dude. It's so
really
mean.
fucking is.
It's just like, it's also unnecessary. Like, chill out. What the fuck?
Yeah. Look, I'd be doing it constantly.
Understood.
Sir, miss, can I please use the bathroom? Sure. In the bathroom, speaking in tongues. The school bully's just like, ah!
Yeah, ah! Dies.
What's happening?
You just fuck with someone and give them their hit them with the period hex like every week.
So it's like, whatever it is bad, right? You can literally go in there and make someone violently shit their pants.
You could, yes. I feel like that's on the table, yeah.
Oh my god. Oh god, even worse if you go there, you're like,
I cast dysentery.
Yeah, I cast nut. And so it's like,
oh.
in the middle of the classroom.
Just, oh god.
Full vinegar strokes.
It's just, you just do it to them like 5 times in a row. Just incredible pain.
Every time they take a step, it just happens again.
Oh my god.
On the floor, crying, writhing.
Bro.
Pants soiled.
Oh my god, dude.
Dude, I shouldn't play a witch. I would have used my power far too much.
I know. Well, that's what makes the witch fun, is you're like, I just get to throw spells at people? Fuck yeah, dude.
Yep. Oh, it does say you have to meet their gaze, which is...
That's fine.
Oh, that's even... Okay, that's worse, though. Because if you went to a high school like mine, my graduating class was 100 students, very small, you could just stand outside the door while someone is, like, taking a test, and then they look at you and you're already mid-cast, and they're like, what the fuck? Oh!
Well, it does say either expend a sympathetic token during a ritual,
true,
or meet their gaze. So you could go into the bathroom with their voodoo doll and,
and
fuck
make
with
them
them.
violently shit their pants.
Yeah. Yeah, no biggie.
Oh, the ideas are already coming together.
Oh, yeah. It's all coming together.
It's all coming together. There is some like advanced fuckery shit going on, but for the most part, that is the end of the book. I did want to bring up the Session 0 stuff because I think it's really fun and it works really well in establishing the story as it is. So essentially what happens, right, is once your characters establish their backstories in Session 1, you set up a seating chart. You literally create your homeroom class. And that's really dope because it represents not only a hub for your characters to play in, it provides them like a space where they can interact with each other whilst like also creating a main cast of characters. Like you are creating your ensemble cast. You're literally doing the like Saved by the Bell thing, which is really fun. And the players make those characters. So the way that it works is once the characters are made, once everything's done, you create like a little seating chart, a little classroom. I did it using some like basic shapes in Photoshop. And you go around the room, you ask which player is the most popular. I forgot to do this, admittedly. I just let people pick where they wanted to sit. And what you're supposed to do is each time someone picks a seat, and you should only have like, the game says if you've got 4 players, make it like 12 to 16 max. I'm running 6 players, so I have 20, but 12 to 16 is a good number. And you basically just go, okay, who's sitting next to you? And encourage them to make allies and enemies. And just ask, who's sitting next to you? And they can give you a name, they can describe a person, and then you ask them provocative questions. Is this person gay? Why did they get arrested? Who got into a fight with them? Who owes them money? And you can extrapolate out on that and create an interwoven web of characters who like each other. And you essentially make mini cliques, like a real classroom, right? People have friend groups. Those friend groups don't get along. There's a bully in the class. There's the class nerd. And it works, because I've tried this, beautifully. Like I said, I forgot about the most popular thing, and I didn't really do it on like a who does what. I let the players pick where they wanted to go, and then I tried to do the like, who's here? And that didn't really work out. I think the players were sort of already in a mindset and kind of struggled. I also told them to think about the NPCs because we are bringing the Lancer characters into MonsterHearts for the sake of expeditiousness. So the players are just keying off of the NPCs that they know in Lancer to bring them into this weird MonsterHearts AU. And like I said, it works great. And the game it advises you, right? You want to make the knit as tight net as you can, because when you pull one string, one thread on the web, the whole thing reverberates. And if you do it right, it does, and it has. It's just, yeah, it's honestly, it's the coolest Session 1/Session 0 thing I've ever done. And I wish more games did it like this. And I know that's sort of PBTA's whole thing.
Correct.
But yeah, of all things, I think the classroom was the coolest.
I mean, Fabula Ultima has some similar kind of vibe to the Session 0 run through.
It does, yes. I think Fabula does it better than MonsterHearts, admittedly, because it gives you comprehensive rules for going into an area's history. Like, this game does not do that.
Well, the game also doesn't care as much about that, right? Like, history of the town and stuff is not really as important as everyone's juicy social drama.
Kind of, yes. It does give you rules for going into building your town. I forgot to put it in my notes. But essentially, characters can go around and say, like, okay, what's a place that your character spends a lot of time in the town? So for us, we have, like, the junkyard that one of my players works in that his uncle owns. There's the rich part of town where one of my players, she's like her mother's a congresswoman. There is the like nicer apartments, and then there's the projects. There's like a restaurant. So like it allows you to set scenes or build sets for your characters to play out scenes in. But Fabulous is way more comprehensive. And I probably should have brought some of that in, but this mini campaign was a rush job. So,
I mean, it's not surprising. Fabula is building upon PBTA broadly as a like design culture, and has come out way after 10 plus years after MonsterHearts, so, or over 10 years after MonsterHearts. So
yes, and it does have the omniscient power of hindsight.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's MonsterHearts. I didn't think we were gonna hit it in one episode. We did it.
I mean, I will say, because we didn't hit like principles and GM moves and stuff, which is fine, but I will, or MC moves. If you are listening and you're like, I feel like I'm still a little confused. They didn't go over the core, like some of the stuff that the GM does, or the core way that this works or that works. Go listen to the Apocalypse World episodes. That will fill in the gaps in MonsterHearts.
Yes, and we didn't really bring it up because there isn't a lot to bring up in MonsterHearts.
There's not as much, for sure.
Like almost none.
And again, MonsterHearts is sort of assuming you know about Apocalypse World already, so
yes,
go listen to the Apocalypse World episode, or read Apocalypse World, I suppose, yourself.
Methinks I'm going to do an episode next week as like a first impressions, played the game, had some thoughts. So probably a shorter episode because we're only doing 2 sessions total. But yeah.
Hopefully he doesn't come back and say it was terrible.
Well, we've already done 1 session and it's fantastic, but we'll get into it next time. Any closing thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like I said, looking at MonsterHearts, I've always heard about MonsterHearts, of course, because being a fan of Apocalypse World, you're going to hear about MonsterHearts at some point because it's one of those PBTA games that gets brought up all the time. But it is interesting actually reading and going through it because it's clear to me looking at it that it's an early example of that big PBTA movement that happened. It's kind of interesting going back and looking at an older PBTA game and sort of analyzing, being like, yeah, we've moved on from some of this stuff, and in some ways we've like improved it, in some ways we changed it quite drastically. In some elements, I kind of feel a little like maybe we're trying to move too far away from Apocalypse World, and maybe we should reel it in a little bit. Not in the case of MonsterHearts, but in the case of other games. So I don't know, it's just interesting to, it's, if nothing else, I mean, it's an interesting game, and it's a good game, but it is also interesting to look at it in a cultural design ethos kind of way. That was a thinly veiled way of me saying I'm a little concerned about the direction Dungeon World 2 is going in.
Oh, you want to go into a little bit?
I don't know that we have the time to go into it right now. I feel like it'd be a long, rambly thing, but they're making some choices that I feel are a little strange, and perhaps they're very much making a modern PBTA game and dropping some of the stuff that Dungeon World 1 had, I think, in the effort of trying to make it more modern, but I think perhaps throwing the baby out with the bathwater a little bit in some cases. For example, gear. So, Dungeon World is a fantasy adventure, go out into the dungeon, collect, to fight the monster, get the loot or whatever. Character gear has no mechanical effect at all. It's purely fictional based. Don't love that decision.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things I actually liked about Dungeon World is that the gear did things.
It's also a thing I like about Apocalypse World.
But things regardless.
I think Apocalypse World hit a very good middle ground between a little bit of mechanical crunch and choice for the people that wanted to lean into that stuff, but still mostly focused on the fictional, leaned into the strengths of the game's fiction first focus, like the tags on the gear Some of them have more fictional stuff. Some of them are a little more mechanical, but you have choices to make about, especially if you're like a battle babe, for example, and you're making a custom weapon. There's choices to be made in a game mechanical sense, but they flow into the fictional aspect of the game like seamlessly. So yeah, removing that in a game like Dungeon World, I understand removing gear. Like MonsterHearts doesn't have gear, Masks doesn't have gear, Avatar Legends doesn't have gear. But I understand those games not having gear because it's not really a crux of the genre that they're trying to invoke, right? Like it's not a character in Avatar has one or two things on them that's their like cool piece of gear, right? Aang had his staff, Sokka had the boomerang, and then the sword later. But it's not like a D&D character where you're like, I have my magic sword and my magic shield and my sick cloak and my magical ring and shit. You know, part of the fantasy thing is collecting like gear stuffs. That's kind of part of the vibe. So it feels weird that they took that away.
Yeah, I agree. That's the law.
It feels a little off genre to me.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple of people make comments that they're trying to make Dungeon World Masks Edition. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't know if that's what I want. So, yeah.
Yeah, fair and valid.
So interesting looking at an older PBTA game and going like, oh yeah, this is how the older games did it. Perhaps we should look at Saga of the Icelanders soon.
I really like that game.
It's an intriguing one.
Or, I remember liking that game. I read it back when we were in college.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've looked at it too.
Maybe. I feel like we got to do Kane next.
And then there's other games like fucking
City of Mist. I want to read
City of Mist. And then have you ever heard of Ironsworn?
Yes.
That's another game that like sort of came out of PBTA, but is almost not recognizable as PBTA unless you really know what to look for. Kind of like how Blades is technically a PBTA game, but also kind of not. Ironsworn, similar kind of vibe.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Anyway. The culture of who designs based on who and who's taking from who is always interesting stuff.
But yeah, that'll be us.
That's been us. I forgot to say, hit subscribe or follow on your podcast platform of choice at the beginning, so you should do it now.
Yeah, and follow us on
No.
something.
No. Just hit subscribe. I don't care about social media.
Okay.
You can if you want. Social media is in the description if you're so inclined.
We'd appreciate it.
I'd appreciate I'd appreciate the subs more.
Yeah, I mean, I'd appreciate the subs more, but like
Subs more.
follow would be nice too. I wish to see Numba go bigger in any way.
Number go bigger, so number go bigger.
Numba go bigger. All right, peace, motherfuckers.